All right, welcome back to This Week in the News with Niche Pursuits. My name is Jared Bauman. Today, we're going to be talking about a number of topics, but most notably, we're going to be discussing the fact that Google sat down with a site owner of a helpful content update destroyed website. That's a mouthful, but basically the HCU came through and destroyed so many websites, so many content publishers. And Google's Danny Sullivan actually met in person with one of them. He invited him out to London. We'll also talk about Sports Illustrated and USA Today. Remember that scandal that they were in the news for with publishing fake AI authors? Well, there's a big backstory that got released this week on it. We've got another couple news updates that we'll talk through. We've got our side hustles to get into. And of course, we'll bring it home with one weird niche. Spencer is out again this week, and we are joined by Colin Ma. Colin, welcome.
Hey, Jared, thanks for having me. Happy to be a guest for this week.
Welcome on board. Looking forward to doing this with you. Why don't you tell us, a little bit about your involvement with Niche Pursuits and maybe your backstory, if you could, just 30 seconds, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so my name's Colin Ma. I've been doing SEO for 8 years. I've done all sorts: affiliate, my own portfolio, client work, in-house agency. Currently helping Spencer run his Niche Pursuits Pro community, which actually inspired my side hustle I'll be talking about later today.
Well, what a good tie-in. I interviewed somebody for an upcoming podcast episode that used you and your to help them grow their business with SEO. So full circle. We're going to get a lot of Colin Ma mentions here in the next couple of weeks in the podcast. But but you're in the hot seat today, so let's go ahead and dive in to our first article and our first news story. That is, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Those who listen a lot know that this is always an ongoing struggle of mine. Hey, so you might have caught wind of it. If you haven't heard, we've been talking about the HCU, the Helpful Content Update, and the fact that it's really had a large impact on publishers, specifically publishers of content websites. And one outspoken person is familiar with the podcast. It's Brandon Saltamacchia. I believe I'm saying that right. He actually joined us on the podcast a year or two ago to talk about his website, Retro Dodo. His website has been completely crushed in this Helpful Content Update. And he's been very vocal about it, very vocal about what's outranking him and the fact that it's destroying his business. Interestingly enough, Google took notice of this. Danny Sullivan, the Google search liaison, invited Brandon out to the headquarters in London. And there's a couple of sound bites or clips that I thought we would maybe go through and talk about here. From a high level, though, did you catch wind of this, Colin? I'm guessing you kind of read this article that Brandon published in preparation for today.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did first hear about this a couple of months back when I think he first published, that just his site got decimated, that and another site. So, taking a look at this, I was, took a closer look at the site, saw that it indeed lost 90% of its traffic, and just kind of surprised and impressed that he was invited to Google HQ in London.
Do you ever get stuck in your business and wish you had someone you could turn to for solutions? Well, I think you should consider joining the Niche Pursuits community. You'll get weekly calls with experts on growing a successful online business, and you'll also get assigned a small mastermind group where you can solve your business problems as well as share your wins. For a limited time, I'll let you try out the Niche Pursuits community for just $1. Go ahead and use coupon code PODCAST at checkout in order to get your first month for just $1. Again, that's coupon code PODCAST. Go to community.nichepursuits.com today and see what it's all about. And maybe I'll see you on our call next week. Thanks a lot.
So here's some of the feedback that he shared in this article. And I do recommend you read it because this isn't one of these kind of op-ed pieces or, written by a journalist. This is written by a fellow content publisher. He's been pretty outspoken about what he thinks is wrong with Google. But he got an invite by Danny Sullivan to go out there and kind of talk in person and share this with him. Let's see some of the highlights here that I point out. He said from the outset, I'll make clear that Danny didn't and couldn't share any actionable advice. He talked about how, like you said, Colin, he's had to get rid of his entire team bar one. He's hanging on for dear life and still losing money to keep Retro Dodo afloat. He said this: one main takeaway from my conversation with Danny is that he did say to hang on, to keep doing what we are doing, and that he's hopeful that those of us building great websites will see some signs of recovery over the coming months. He said, I got the vibe that Google are really struggling with how they come across to web creators. The search liaison team and the search central team as a whole have a dang difficult job keeping their users updated and, more importantly, keeping them calm during these storms. And then maybe one final quote here is, Danny was certainly worried about creators leaving or stopping the production of great content because of algorithm changes. Quote, "We're not perfect and we are trying to fix it," end quote. And that was one of the moments that stuck with me, Brandon commented. Almost like Danny put his hands up, which is kind of what I wanted to hear, because Google certainly isn't perfect right now, and the admittance was welcome. You know, it's interesting, I guess, from a high level, it's interesting to talk this through, because this feels like a microcosm. This meetup between Brandon and Danny, to me, feels like a microcosm of everything that's going on with Google and web publishers right now, which is you've got Danny, who is constantly put in the limelight of defending Google and trying to give us publishers more context around what they're doing. And he's constantly getting beat up from people like us saying, Danny, this isn't working. This isn't going well. Look what's happening in the SERPs. And he constantly is more and more having to throw his hands up and say, I'm sorry, I don't really know what to do. I don't really know how to help you. Just make good content. And that's really all that it sounds like came out of this meetup. It was a nice, friendly meetup. Brandon got a really cool tour of Google headquarters, but there's really nothing to come of it. There's really nowhere to go from it. So it's this interesting dichotomy that exists between Danny, who feels and acts a lot like a fellow web creator, having no connection to what's actually happening in Google.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's hard for me to really see what the intent is in inviting him over. Like, is this a PR move, or does he actually, think that things are going to get better for independent publishers, encouraging them to weather the storm, right? He says, hold on. Mm-hmm. But, Retro Dodo losing money, bleeding money. And it's hard. It's discouraging to kind of just say, yeah, there's just hold on, wait, something might happen. But I think it's also something, I don't know how much impact or influence he's going to have, because, the algorithms, very complicated, that has to run by, I'm sure, high level ups. And, it's going to be hard, I think, for them to, really balance out smaller publishers.
Do you think, because he said in this article that Danny has reached out, obviously, to Retro Dodo in the past, I think you mentioned that a couple months ago, he reached out and said, can I get you some feedback? He reached out to House Fresh, who we've talked about in the podcast quite a bit as well, and they've been vocal about it. Like, do you think Danny is actually trying? Do you think he's going to be able to take any feedback and get any changes across the board? And from a higher level, I've seen a lot of people this week who've reacted to this article, because this article came out about a week ago. I think it broke right as we were recording last week's podcast. But I've seen some people say, hey, there's hope. There's hope on the horizon. Like, it looks like Google is trying to help web publishers, and many of them are leaning into Danny's comment that you just referenced. Like, do you think there's hope? Do we have reason to be hopeful, or is this another one of Google's PR statements that is meant to kind of lead us along?
I think Danny wants to help. I don't know if Google as an entity wants to help. He certainly seems sympathetic. I definitely buy into that, but I'm not optimistic as far as smaller web publishers are, as far as they go, just because, we haven't seen a lot of progress here, and I don't know how they're going to tie that into an algorithm unless they make a very specific use case for these types of sites, which Google typically is reluctant to. They like to handle things at scale. Like Sundar's interview, the CEO, that he did maybe a few months back, which is basically seemed like a giant PR interview. He basically said, yeah, these are small individual cases, but we need to address these problems at scale. And he might have actually even mentioned Retro Dodo specifically.
You're exactly right. We covered that story too. I can't remember who interviewed him, but somebody interviewed him and directly referenced Retro Dodo, and I think House Fresh as well, ironically.
Yeah, I knew for sure House Fresh. So yeah, I mean, it's possible. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sort of help there, but it's not certainly something that I want to encourage people to bank on. I think that's very dangerous, when it comes to depending on Google and primarily Google for your traffic and your income.
I mean, we have another story that we'll get to that's talking about an upcoming core update and its implications. Like, I guess I'll kind of close by asking you this question, at least close on this topic. Like, what connection do you think Danny does have then to Google? Like, where's his role here? Because we just keep finding him in situations where it seems like such a disconnect between what the algorithms are doing and what Danny is saying that he wants for publishers.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really followed him too closely, but my impression is that he kind of, employed by Google to get a pulse on the SEO community and how they feel about the state of search. I don't know if he has a lot of power or influence really in like the ranking systems and feedback in that. Nothing that I have seen has really alluded to that. But I think his job is more just to communicate to, maybe some Google executives like, look, this is where SEOs are and this is how they feel. Do with it what you will. But, I don't know how much influence he will be able to exert on, small publishers and getting them the help that, they want.
It's a good point. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the real definition of liaison, like his job is to take what our feedback and give it to the team. And I'm not sure anybody really cares about what he thinks at Google because his job is just to pass on the information. Perhaps, I don't know his job description, to be fair. I'm just leaning into this idea of what a liaison does. But, we covered a story last week. If you missed it might be fun to go back and look. If you have a site that was hit by the helpful content update, we actually did talk about a website that has had a partial recovery. They shared exactly what they did and stuff. And we're going to get into another topic here in a second. But, this idea of hope is interesting, right? And this article came out at a time where most web publishers are finding the new norm. And so still, though, to wonder about hope is kind of the thread of this story. So many people listening will have had websites, content that got hit by the helpful content update. So we'll have to see how this plays out. It's, I suppose, to close, it's better than the alternative. I'd say Danny inviting Brandon to Google and showing him around and listening is better than not inviting him. How's that? That's the most positive spin I can put on it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They might not necessarily care, but at least they're pretending to care. And like you said, better than nothing.
Better than just telling us maybe not actually, but I'll leave that conversation for the day. Yeah, better than not inviting him out. Okay, let's move on to what I think is the most complicated story we will have ever featured on the Niche Pursuits News podcast. And I am sorry that you had to join us for that, because when this article and this whole topic hit our radar, it's incredibly interesting, but oh my goodness, you need a couple of days to unwind this entire story. The story's called Chum King Express. It's an article on The Verge, and the subtitle is "The Man Behind the AI Gaffes at Sports Illustrated and USA Today has a years-long history of filling the internet with garbage." So, okay, I'm going to attempt to put together a kind of overview of this article. So give me a minute or two. It's a good read. I'm not trying to downplay it. It's an incredible read. It's going to touch on so many things that a lot of us know, especially if you've been doing online marketing for a number of years now. So definitely read it. But let me see if I can kind of piece together some of the things that are behind this article. So this starts by talking about the website Best Reviews. And many of us will have known about that website. Very popular review site. It was acquired by the Chicago Tribune. Then a syndication relationship was set up between the Best Reviews website and the Chicago Tribune. And then out of the blue, the Chicago Tribune noticed that Best Reviews was publishing a very weird article with very weird links in the Chicago Tribune. And so again, this is a syndicated relationship. And so what did they do? They pulled it, called Best Reviews, and they ended up speaking to the owner of Best Review, who they had bought the site from, one other than, what's his name? Ben Faw. That's the subject of this article. Best Reviews was owned and then sold by Ben Faw. The article then goes on to connect Sports Illustrated's fake author profiles and their AI content. We covered this at the end of last year, and that's gone on to have, in some part, pretty deep ramifications for Sports Illustrated. They've had to lay off a lot of people. They ended up rehiring a bunch of them. Big story about all that. But this really put this whole fake author profile and AI in general into the spotlight for publishing. Ironically, the company behind all of that, the company that Sports Illustrated was using, was a company called Advon. Guess who their CEO and co-founder was? Ben Faw. It goes on to talk about Best Reviews, and it really outlines in detail a lot of the link schemes that they were going through. This is something that people listening might remember, like Best Reviews would put a lot of links to random interesting articles or content on there. And what this article kind of deep dives is, it seems like Ben Faw is connected to so many of the companies that they were putting links into, business deals with friends and classmates and these sorts of things. Goes on to talk about how towards the end of his time at Best Reviews, he was actually building competing review sites and inserting a lot of links into Best Reviews for his new upcoming sites, sold Best Reviews, and then moved on to these other sites. So I will stop there. I am trying to summarize what is a very detailed and robust outlining, but it's interesting because The Verge has a habit of doing these. What are your thoughts on all of this? First off, did you read the whole article? It's okay to admit if you just kind of skimmed it, but what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, so I read about 70% of the article and skimmed the remaining 30% once you kind of got the gist of, once it started connecting all the other companies and just how deep it got into the web of companies. But I can't say I'm surprised. If you just follow along, like, you hear about news of like businesses and scams and like illegal company formations and stuff. I'm not saying this is illegal. There's definitely some conflicts of interest, but I mean, the guy's clearly pretty smart, graduated from West Point. I think he went to like Harvard Business University and found a way to maybe game the system and be creative with his companies to generate more revenue through, selling links, maybe a little, maybe a little overconfident in trying to get his content published or syndicated through the Chicago Tribune. I think that's probably like a big mistake on his end. But selling links, I mean, that's nothing new. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's just a bigger site that does it. And as far as, linking to his other affiliate sites, I know the author of the article kind of dumps on him a little bit for that. Like, why would you do that to compete against your own company? Well, I mean, I think, if you've owned multiple affiliate sites, you're going to look at ways to link to each other in a way that's natural and organic. Not saying that's not necessarily what he did, because a lot were spammy. But again, I think he's a pretty smart guy just trying to figure out ways to squeeze more money. And, he knew what he was doing. He knew that it wasn't exactly, kosher business practices. But, I didn't see any really terrible implications. Seems like he, was able to sell links, get clients for his agency that he partnered up with, and have some nice exits along the way.
I think this article presents a fascinating juxtaposition because, and in light with the other topics we're talking about today, you're exactly right. Like, a lot of what he's doing is just kind of what many, and I would argue to some degree, most would argue is just kind of how the internet works. And a lot of that is just kind of common practices that are going around. Did he go to the extremes of them more so than others? Sure, probably. Did he, but to your point, like within the confines of how the world of the internet kind of has come to be, a lot of this feels like The Verge making a puff piece out of something, right? And we know they do this. They love to just find something and turn it into a moral situation or a big story. At the same time, it's interesting to see this article juxtaposed up against a retro dodo who goes to Google and pleads with Google. And it's interesting because on one side of the coin, I can sit here and say, like, Google, what are you doing destroying our sites? And on the flip side, we have to acknowledge, well, maybe this is exactly the type of stuff they're trying to destroy. And so it's a really interesting juxtaposition to do these two news pieces side by side, I found. I thought The Verge made a big deal out of not nothing, but something that isn't a big deal. And yet perhaps Google is making a big deal out of something that they consider to be a very big deal.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really good tie-in and something that I thought about as far as, what are the implications of this, right? Like, he maybe got a slap on the wrist. I don't know if he faced legal or any lawsuits or anything, but it is this type of behavior that Google is certainly trying to avoid. I don't know how often these cases are. This is probably more of an extreme example than, what you're going to see. Like, most people don't have this kind of SEO pull, right? But, definitely causing a problem for people who are doing legitimate SEO. It's probably, maybe something that Google has picked up on. They have been known to kind of scour media and certainly target people.
Yeah, they have.
So it's hard to say the impact. I would say, that is probably one of the bigger things that I got from this article. Because I know you had mentioned that news of this kind of went live a while ago. This is actually news to me. This is my first time reading about it, and I thought it was extremely interesting. Maybe a little convoluted. It just got really too deep into it. Whereas you said Verge likes their puff pieces. And I was at some point just like, wow, this is a lot of detailed attention and not literally accounting, but accounting for links and tracing companies and all that for something that ultimately I'm just like, wow, I'm in the SEO community and I don't even know if I care to this degree.
I can't imagine, like, there's been other Verge articles where I'm like, oh, my dad would totally love to read this. He'd be fascinated by it. He'd have questions for me. I can't imagine any average regular person reading past the first paragraph. It's just, yeah, to your point, it's a lot.
Yeah. Even for people like you and I who are in the industry, probably the target audience, I don't know, that it just got way too deep. And I think didn't need to be that long. But
Yeah.
I do agree that maybe this type of behavior is kind of driving some of the unfortunate changes that we're seeing with Google updates.
It's to your point. It's like, where's that line? Perhaps for me, that article kind of talked about that. Like, everyone has a different line when it comes to this kind of stuff. Some people might read this article, by the way, and be like, this is flagrantly wrong. Other people might read this article and be like, yeah, that was me in my first year of SEO. Boy, you should see me now. Like, the line is so gray in so many of these circumstances. And I think back to Brandon's point that he brought up in his article, which is like, hey, Google, why are we having to watch YouTube videos? Why are we having to hire SEO experts? Why are we having to try to dissect leaked documents to figure out what is and isn't a ranking factor? Why don't you just tell us so that we can all work together on it? And I think this article would almost support that claim. Like, hey, Google, maybe if you didn't hide everything so much, but maybe they have to hide stuff so much because of stuff. It's very interesting. It's super nuanced.
Yeah, 100%. It's a fine line to balance out, because if they did tell us, it's going to be abused. Back in, I mean, this was before my days of SEO, when keyword stuffing, and you'd make those keywords like the same color as your background, so users couldn't see.
I will neither confirm nor deny if I've done that.
Exactly. So I get why they can't, disclose that information, because it's going to be abused. There's always going to be bad actors in any system, especially one as profitable as this one. And, even thinking about this type of behavior, it made me think about, let's see, are you familiar with parasite SEO?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a term where you get like a content or article published on like a big DR90 powerful website. That's the first thing it made me think of. I'm not saying, they're the exact same thing, but just another one way to abuse, the pull of really nice domains, powerful links, to make a quick buck.
Well, it's certainly not going to be the first time we hear about stuff like this, especially not if The Verge catches wind of it anymore. So, interesting. I highly recommend everyone reads it. We'll include a link for it in the show notes, but more or less, it's hard to come to any grandiose conclusions from it, but it certainly does pose interesting questions as we sit here and kind of scratch our heads over why some of our really valuable content sites got destroyed. Interesting. Okay, so we do have one more quick article to touch on. This does tie everything in together quite nicely. Google is back in the news, and this time, though, for something that might happen in the future. The title of the article in Search Engine Land is New Google Core Update Coming in Weeks. The last core update was a March 2024 core update, although there has been a lot of volatility since then. And many sites are still waiting since September 2023 to see helpful content recoveries. So I do think this article is a bit of a stretch, but let me just read you what Danny Sullivan said. He posted this on Search Engine Roundtable this week. He said, "We'd tell you when the next core update will be if we knew. We don't know exactly yet. That's all. They aren't scheduled to a particular day. Blah, blah, blah. Some stuff. I would expect we'll see one in the coming weeks because that fits in with our general cycle, but precisely when, that's just not known yet." So, I mean, that's interesting. I think, the article goes on to say many sites are hoping and have been hoping to see improvements with the latest core update ever since the September 2023 helpful content update rolled out. Most, if not all of those sites that were hit did not see recoveries. Many were hoping to see recoveries with the March 2024 core update, but did not. It ties in interestingly. This is the second time that you could say that Danny's in the news about updates and that there's correlations between those updates and hopeful recoveries from the HCU. Not much to report on because it hasn't happened yet. And it would fit the narrative, though he's right. We talked about this a week or two ago on the podcast. Like, if you're going to squeeze in that incredibly destructive holiday Google Core update that tends to come out around November, December, you got to get one in now so you give yourself enough time. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it rolls out in the coming weeks. I mean, that might be something that that maybe we do get our first glimpses of hope, of recovery, of people who've worked hard, and maybe they'll see a recovery.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to me, the article said a lot, but really didn't say too much.
Nope.
I don't know if he's really just basing it off of timeline or if he's also saying like, we're actually, we've actually been working on a core update. And so, it's coming in a couple of weeks, but we don't know exactly when. So I don't know. At this point, it doesn't really change how I do SEO or anything. At this point, I'm just, if I see an update, I see an update, and, let's just see. There's no way to really optimize for updates anymore.
I have a client who sent me this article and said, should we wait on doing some of the stuff you're proposing because of this upcoming core update? My first thought is, wait, how did you see this? You're an attorney. Second off, no, we shouldn't. Like, this is hearsay and we don't know when it's coming, and they're always coming. Like, we know this is coming. They're always on the horizon. Like, that's kind of how this game works. So yeah, I don't think you'd be out of line by saying a core update is coming because one is always on the horizon in the next 3 to 6 months. But with that being said, folks, it sounds like a core update's coming.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. So you probably know the importance of building internal links so your site can perform well in Google. Today I want to share how Link Whisper can help you add outbound internal links to your articles. As you draft your article in WordPress, Link Whisper scans your site, identifying the best internal link opportunities. It then recommends the perfect anchor text and link to add. With just a click, your content is updated with new internal links. No more expensive tools or tedious manual site searches. Link Whisper does the heavy lifting right inside the WordPress editor. Say goodbye to the hassle of internal linking. With Link Whisper, you can focus on what you do best, creating great content. Use the coupon code PODCAST today and get $15 off. Elevate your website's internal linking with Link Whisper now. Building smart internal links just got easier. Go to linkwhisper.com today and be sure to use coupon code PODCAST to get $15 off.
Okay, well, hey, great job, Colin. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on the news. We got a couple of interesting articles there that we went through. Certainly some of the juxtapositions that were created were fascinating. If you have comments on those and you're watching on YouTube, please let us know below. There's definitely some juicy stuff to sink your teeth into. And if you want to share your perspectives. Speaking of sharing perspectives, let's move on to share what we're doing in the side hustle world. I know that you and I are both going to be talking in some capacity about the Amazon Influencer Program. I love that you have a cool story about that. We'll get to that. I'll just quickly touch on a couple things I'm doing. Amazon Influencer, which I'll touch on. It was Prime Day earlier this week. And again, they're 2 days. They started off with 1 day, and then I think they really liked the sales bump, and then they turned it into 2 days. We're recording on a Thursday. Prime Day was Tuesday and Wednesday. And then the data usually is delayed by a day or two in terms of when you see the sales come through, because it's not until it ships that you kind of get the pay. So maybe stuff you sold on first day of Prime Day on Tuesday, you'll see your results on Wednesday. Stuff you sold on Wednesday, you'll see results on Thursday. Maybe some of the stuff you sold on Tuesday doesn't get shipped until Wednesday, so you see it Thursday. So the reason I say that is to say it's Thursday at recording. I got a little bit of numbers back, but hopefully the numbers will continue to go up. But I hit almost $300 yesterday on Prime Day on the reporting, which would have been the results from the first day. So that would be probably about 100% up, or double what I normally would do on a day. And so the day that reports tomorrow about today, usually would be higher on these kinds of experiences. The downside, and I like to share this with people, because if you actually look at the math, is that a lot of people stop their purchases in the week leading up to Prime Day. And so you actually end up with normally, and this is what a lot of people talk about, less sales in the week leading up to it. So honestly, if you pull back and look at the entire month, it honestly usually ends up a wash. You get a bunch of sales on 2 or 3 days, and then you kind of have less sales in the days leading up and the days behind it. So anyways, we'll see. I want to hear about your any Prime Day stuff from you on your influencer thing. I want to talk about the Slice, the email newsletter that we purchased. So that was going to be kind of the main focus there. So I told everyone that we bought a newsletter and we're trying to warm everything back up. Well, we're 4 emails in. And so I thought I'd kind of report on those results. It's very interesting. We have sent 4 emails now. Open rates have ranged from 10% to 38%. Total clicks on the emails have ranged from 65 total clicks in one email to 1,317 total clicks in another email. And they've all followed a fairly similar format. And so it's fascinating that I honestly thought that we were writing the first 4 emails were going to be 4 general topics for each email that were going to be really solid for the audience. And boy, we have found some that have performed so well with, over 1,300 clicks from an audience that's just over 6,000 people, right? To some that have performed absolutely awful, 10% open rate, 65 clicks, nobody engaging. So we've been playing a lot with content types, moving content blocks around, trying to kind of find the right formula. Here's some quick feedback just, to share. So the email, there's 2 emails that have done really well, 1 email that's done okay, and 1 that's done awful. Out of the 2 emails that have done really well, there's a clear correlation between being really clear in the subject line about exactly what they're going to get. So not as clickbaity, not as like, your life will change with these 8 tips, like very clear, like the one that did really well was about, here is a way to change your morning habits. And then as soon as you open the email, the highest click stuff is right in the top of the subject line. So moral of the story is that if you have an email list, whether you bought it or whether you started it, test. Because man, we have gotten such different results, but without trying different things, we wouldn't have known that. So early days, but certainly some of the ones that are doing well, we're really impressed by.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Over almost 1,200 clicks in a single email in one of your first emails is pretty nice. Do you do a lot of email marketing or just email sending, Jared?
Yeah, we do a lot. We do. My last company, we were sending millions of marketing emails a year through all sorts of automated funnels. We do that now as an agency. So we help businesses with their email marketing. We set it up. We do kind of advanced funneling for them. And then we have a couple newsletters, or the Weekend Growth newsletter, which gets sent out. We have the Slice now. And then we run newsletters for a couple of our websites, and then along with the client work. So yeah, we're in email a lot.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you're a seasoned pro. I was going to say, if not, what helped me level up my email marketing a little bit was a talk given by Juliet Lowell in the Niche Pursuits community. I don't do a lot of email marketing, but she gave some really nice tips in that community that helped me and a few others in the community. But you're probably a little too advanced for that.
Well, I don't know. It's one of these things where you can always learn something. And it's like, whenever you go to a class or a workshop or anything, as long as you pick up one thing, like it ends up being worth it,
Yeah, that's what I say. If I listen to a podcast over 45 minutes, if I can pick up one thing, that's a win for me.
Still a win. I mean, you want to pick up more, don't get me wrong, but and a note, they're all recorded, right? So, anybody who signs up can get access to all of the past calls, and I can go back and listen to it without having to worry about missing it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So we'll keep doing the email. And, I've been on a couple calls with a couple different brands about sponsorship for it. As we get the data back, we can kind of give a little bit more of an authoritative platform for sponsorship opportunities, but we have a sponsor for the first couple emails and some others that are interested in sponsoring it. I think overall good spot to be after 4 emails. Definitely would like to throw away that one email that performed awful, but that's what you have, you have some throwaways. what is going on in your world of side hustles?
Yeah, so you touched on this a little bit earlier, but mostly just working on as my primary side hustle, the Amazon influencer program. And that's actually something that you and Spencer actually turned me on to in the Niche Pursuits community. Spencer talked about it first during his call, and he said, "Yeah, I outsource all of that." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. That's interesting. I don't know if I want to do all that." And then you came in the next week and you said, "Hey, I'm making all these videos myself. This is the format. I'm not really testing stuff." I'm like, "I think I could do that." So actually, credits to you. Your second call is the one that really inspired me to get going. So thank you for that, Jared.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yeah, and so I got accepted at the end of March. I had my first sale in April.
Okay.
I've made about $480.
Okay.
That's $100 to $150 a month. So it's not a lot of money. It might pay for a nice date night for myself and the fiance. I would love to get it to about $400 a month, because at that point, that's when it takes care of like a real bill.
Yeah.
For me, just myself and my fiance, that's groceries for the month. That's pretty nice. And I want that to hit that, not including like the holiday seasonal increase that you see in October, November. That said, I haven't been working that hard to get to that goal. I have 123 posts.
Okay.
And I'm doing about 3 to 5 posts a week. So honestly, 15 to 30 minutes a week. Not spending a ton of time on it. I'm honestly just loving playing a ton of pickleball. But I've spent about 15 hours in total on this. And so, if you kind of calculate your hourly pay, or like the $480 I've made over 15 hours, that's about what I want to say $33 an hour, which is not bad at all, and it's only going to move up. I hope, as I'm not spending much time, but the sales are fairly stable at about $100 a month. So again, nothing life changing, but what's one thing that I really like about it is I ran sites of my own. It would take 6 to 12 months just to see your first sale. And man, within, I don't know, a week of being accepted, I see a sale. I'm like, wow, this is real. I even posted it on Reddit, and someone like, wow, congrats, you can just buy yourself coffee now, like kind of sarcastically. But I'm like, man, that was a big win for me, just to see kind of like that first dollar come in for a new business.
It's huge. It's so motivational.
Yeah.
And you can put the $150 all you want, but to your point, I think the most important thing about it is the return on investment, the ROI. Your investment was 15 hours. So it's not like a website where you have spent, every piece of content, pre-AI, of course, but would take hours to produce. And you've spent 15 total hours over several months. And, those videos will continue to produce in some way, shape, or form going forward.
Yeah. If I found out about this sooner, well, I actually heard about this a little ways back, I think when you and Spencer first started, and I thought videos, it's not really my thing. But man, if I had just started back then, would be making a lot more money. Videos take a couple minutes to film, very easy to do it between tasks. They're a little more fun than spending 8 hours on a blog post. I remember my first site, I would spend 6 to 8 hours writing about swimming pool cleaners. Made a lot of money, and I was very lucky, but I would not go back.
Was that the site? Because you were on the Niche Pursuits podcast as a guest many years ago, before I started hosting, and I just hit my 3-year mark, someone told me. So it must have been 4, 5, 6 years ago that you were on as a guest. Was that the site that you talked about?
Man, probably. Yeah. That's definitely like my first site that got me started. And I was very lucky in being very successful, where swimming pools, obviously being a seasonal niche, I would wake up, 8 a.m. on the summer day, and I would have already made more money than I did at my job, which was, a consulting software engineer. So it was a good job, but I'd wake up and be like, wow, I already made $900 from, a dumb blog about swimming pools.
So good. So good. Bring those days back.
Yeah.
Well, hey, congratulations. Are you planning on going in further on it? Are you going to just continue to do a couple a week? Like where are you thinking about going now?
Yeah, honestly, it's something that I like to spend a little time on. I do want to, when I go to Airbnbs, and actually, again, got this tip from you, Jared, look up products. I'll walk around with my phone, see what products are on Amazon. I'll make note of them, and then I'll film them. And then in between shoots, my fiance will give me some crap for it. But yeah, I definitely want to do Airbnbs. Sometimes when I go to a friend's house, I'll review a couple of items. A creative idea I had, and I haven't tested this, was getting paid to pet sit at people's houses via Rover, and
Oh, yeah.
disclosing this, that like,
Yeah.
hey, look, I'm not a weirdo, but I do this thing. I'll give you a discount on pet sitting, but I'm gonna film a couple of like stuff around products. I'm not gonna have any like identifying stuff in your blah 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 in the videos. So I was gonna try that out, but again, I've kind of put this on the back burner just for now with wedding planning and stuff. But those are certainly some ideas that I have. And also, I just heard about this Vine program
Yep.
where you can be invited to get products for free.
Yep.
So one, you get free products, great to have for your house. And then two, that means extra review opportunities for the influencer program.
That's the tough part, because the things that make me the most money are certainly the higher price stuff. And there's only so many higher price things we own. And it's not like I want to go out and spend $300 on something to hopefully have a video make its way into the carousel and sell a lot. There's just, the odds aren't quite high enough to make that viable to me. So finding ways to get access to some of these higher priced products is like the goal, the holy grail, right? Like if you can find that, that's amazing. I heard someone recently was telling me that they were actually trying to kind of negotiate with different Airbnb hosts in their neighborhood, and say like, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to actually come in and just record your appliances and stuff. I don't actually want to spend the night. So could I pay the fee, but could we not do the cleaning fee? Because I won't leave it, and I heard that they had mild success with it. A couple of people in their neighborhood said yes eventually on a slow day or something like that. I thought that was a good idea. Avoid paying some of the fees there.
Yeah, I love that. That's super creative. It gives you maybe 20 hours to film content. Airbnb stays what, 150 to $200, and you might get, I don't know. The two times I've done it, I probably found about 20 to 30 products each.
Right.
With,
Yeah.
some high ticket items.
Well, I mean, the story for me is, again, we were at a cabin in Lake Tahoe last year for our 201 creative board meeting. And I think there are about 25 products, if I remember correctly. I think you're exactly right. And I was like, I don't want to waste. I'm on vacation. I mean, we're not vacation, but darn near close to it. But finally, the last morning, I'm like, I'm getting up early. So I got up at like 5:30 or 6, and I cranked out all these reviews while people were still sleeping. Had to bleed a little over into when people were actually awake and quiet down. I got to do this one video. But one of the products there from that Lake Tahoe cabin in November went on to be the product that kind of went viral during the holiday sales season. And I made the bulk of my money off of.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. There's similarly, I was at an Airbnb in Mammoth snowboarding. Last day, I just decided like, what the heck, let's just film some. And can't say I had the same success. I think probably from those products, I maybe made $30, just guesstimating from like 20 videos. So, didn't quite see the same benefits, but the process is fun to see.
But you never know, because that's the funny thing about it is I'm now noticing that a lot of my videos I made a year ago are selling again. And seasonality plays such a strong component in it. So you don't know, like maybe those products you made really won't start getting seen, bought, and surfaced until the fall or the winter, or, and so sometimes, it can be very challenging to kind of see the feedback loop, but a lot of it is seasonal based.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I can say this program was already a success for me. I could stop earning money and say like, yeah, I learned, and this was a really good success. I hope I can keep earning $150 a month. But yeah, overall, have a lot to you and Spencer to thank for it.
Well, both Spencer and I have made YouTube videos about our first year in the program. And again, he and I went about it very differently. Spencer was all outsourced. I was all pretty much insourced. But we both have videos. So if you go check out the Niche Pursuits video channel and YouTube channel, which by the way is different than the one you're listening to right now. If you're watching, this is the Niche Pursuits podcast YouTube channel. But over the Niche Pursuits YouTube channel is Spencer's video about his first year in the Amazon Influencer Program. And then you can go see mine over at the Weekend Growth YouTube channel. So, well, hey, congratulations. Glad all this jabbering for over a year that Spencer and I have done about the Influencer Program has, I suppose, inspired you a little bit. And I'm just so excited to hear, even early days, but it's still been a win for you. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just like, don't overthink things. Just, just do it. Like, I didn't edit the videos to high quality. I didn't do anything fancy. I just, talked through a product and got some inspiration and got lucky. So just for me, it's just, I took some action and I got a little lucky, but you make your own luck.
There's a lot of conversation about this in the niche pursuits community. I know Morgan was on last week and was talking about, she's talking about influencer, talking about how that's where she goes to get all of her information about the influencer program is our community there. And she was peppering me with questions about how long I spend editing the videos. And I was like, I don't edit the videos. And she was like, what? You don't edit them? I'm like, no, Morgan, you got to stop editing the videos. So I'm glad to hear you're not editing your videos.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people who do. I know Morgan does a lot of editing. She's done well, but yeah, I mean, she started, the program as well as one other member, just because of the niche pursuits community, and both have made over $1,000.
Yeah, she broke the right. Yeah. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe she's making better videos than us.
Maybe.
Hey, so it's time for our weird niches. This is where each of us bring a weird niche. It's always good to have fresh faces in the crowd to see what kind of weird niches you're going to bring. I was going to prepare an update on the now infamous checkbox site that I brought a couple weeks ago. This is the website I kind of declared was the weirdest niche of all. And Spencer skeptically raised an eyebrow and then by the end kind of agreed. So we were going to check back in on that site, and I didn't have time to pull that together before I was reading that Verge article. That's really where all my time went. So I will do that next week, folks. Check back in. We'll talk all about that checkbox site. But in the meantime, my weird niche for the day, it's honestly not that weird, but it is a very bizarre site when you think about a site and how much traffic it's getting and how simple it really is. The site is calculateaspectratio.com. And it's the URL kind of says it, EMD for the win again, like I like to say. This is a site that allows you to basically use this ratio calculator to check dimensions when resizing images. Again, this is something you can totally do with your phone and the calculator on your phone. But nonetheless, there's a site for it, and it's been around since 2015. So it's got almost 10 years going for it. If you want to, let's see here. I am going to pop over to Ahrefs. And if you want to look at Ahrefs, you can see that it did have a downturn back in 2022, but since then it's been pretty steady. And then since the March core update, it has almost doubled in traffic, maybe 50% of an increase in traffic. It's a DR58. It only ranks for 4,000 keywords. But again, it's only a 6-page website. It's just a calculator. It's not even a calculator. I guess it's a calculator. But it ranks for 58,000 keywords. I went to top pages here. Here we go. So, it ranks for 4,000 keywords with an estimated organic traffic of 58,000 per month. And we know Ahrefs tends to undershoot this. It ranks number 1 for aspect ratio calculator, which is an 18,000 a month search term. I mean, it's loaded up with ads, of course. I count 5 ads on screen as we speak. They somehow have managed to fit not 1, but 2 left sidebar ads and 2 right sidebar ads. So well done. I didn't know you could fit that many in there. It's such a simple site. It just very simply allows you to put in the aspect ratio that you want. Here's classic film 3:2. And then you can kind of punch in, well, let's see, I want it to be 1,500 pixels wide. And so that means I need it to be 1,000 pixels high. Not much more to share about this site, except that it's probably making a couple $1,000s a month when you do the math on the ad revenue.
Yeah. I mean, it's so simple, but you gotta love how they had a basic idea, they ran with it, nothing complicated. Because like you said, even though we have our phones, like, for me, if I'm trying to do some math, I'll just punch it in my Chrome browser. I'm not going to whip out my phone. Very convenient. So I get it. I can see a need for that. Not something that I use personally, but a lot of people who are more into design, photos, other stuff, I'm sure it's very helpful.
Yeah, it's not weird in that it's not off the wall, but a lot of what the nature of the weird niches has kind of developed into is kind of weird ways people make money, and a lot of people will say, like, obviously, no one's going out and building some of these weird niche sites we feature, but it really does give you a lot of ideas on how to better monetize, or even some little, cool little things you can do on the internet to make money and to get success out there. We also like to say there's a community for everything. I don't know if that one applies here, but we've certainly seen some weird niches where there's a community for it and you're shocked by the community for it. So, okay, that's my weird niche site. I am now going to pull yours up and you go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to share about this. Maybe a little weirder than yours. Mine is about nail fungus. And
oh boy.
Here's the crazy thing. It started off, wow, this is a really weird niche site. Why does this exist? But I did some digging, and I think this audience and you are probably going to appreciate what I've discovered. So first of all, it peaked at around 1,700 visitors, February 2023. It's now down to 120-ish, ranking for 240 keywords, DR, I want to say mid-20s. The content, it's written by people with PhDs, MDs. The EAT look good. And the content looks pretty good. I mean, I just checked out a couple of pages, but it looks to be good. It's a little outdated. It was started up in like 2012, I want to say. And, website design hasn't changed much. It even has some YouTube videos, kind of a defunct Facebook page. So all in all, it seems like more or less like a real brand. But I did some digging. And in the top right corner, it says a GG HealthWorks Inc. initiative.
I saw that.
Yeah. And so the site looks pretty official, outdated, maybe like a nonprofit, helpful website. But I looked up GG HealthWorks initiative. Now, this company is basically a holding company for e-commerce products. One of the e-commerce products is a nail fungus solution. And it is promoted within the site. The site does have a few affiliate links, although it doesn't have any ads, to be fair. So the company was definitely using this as to appear as an independent, unbiased, very official looking third-party site about toenail fungus, really to push their own product. Now, due to the organic traffic, it's probably not that helpful in creating sales. But I can say that product, it does get branded search terms. It does get traffic. I think the branded search term for it is gets 1,100 searches a month for that nail fungus solution. So, they were definitely investing heavily into the marketing of it. So all in all, it was kind of just interesting to see this content to product funnel and being executed by, a company. Even though at first glance I was excited because, this is pretty interesting. It's a website about toenail fungus.
I discovered a little e-commerce comparison on the nationalnailfungus.org site. Is the one you're talking about, does it happen to be this Amoni nail product?
Yes, that is it exactly.
Go figure. Look at that. It's the number one rated one out of all the ones they're comparing.
Would you look at that? What are the chances?
It's odd that there's a lot more additional red boxes around it. Graphically, they've really made that review stand out, you could say.
Yeah. I will say some credit to them, though. They did not take the standard affiliate content site model of maybe what people have done in the audience that are familiar with, niche pursuits where, you're kind of outsourcing content and stuff, where it does seem like the content is actually good, is pretty helpful. And it does seem like they have MDs and PhDs writing that content, unless they are really good at faking it at a time before faking it was really popular. So either way, credit to them for making it seem like a legitimately helpful site.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on the About Us page. Excuse me. And, they seem to have checked all the boxes in terms of, different people, although this person, Pat, doesn't have a last name. But aside from Pat, it does look like they definitely, like you said, have kind of checked some of the boxes here. They have a physician login. I don't know if you saw that. They have a donate button. Says that the donation is needed to support medical research on nail fungus. What are the odds that goes to support that? But maybe it does. I don't know. To your point, I don't know. This is super interesting. Guy, I'm with you. I wonder. I mean, there's not, for the record, there's nothing wrong with, trying to sell your product. I guess you could bring up the idea of, is it wrong to not disclose that you have an interest in that product? But it's very interesting. It's certainly not the first time I've heard that strategy being used either, by the way. I know a lot of people who use that strategy to help proliferate their brand.
Yeah, 100%. And as soon as I uncovered that, I'm like, okay, this all makes sense. Maybe it's now a little less weird, but still fun to kind of do a little bit of more digging than I expected myself to do, and really kind of see where it went. So it was a fun journey that they took me on.
Boy, I'm going to pull it up here before we close. If you're watching, we're so used to seeing traffic drops that are more like the HCU, where they just kind of fall off a cliff, right? That's not this traffic drop, but this is a different tale of in the end, ultimately a massive traffic drop. It just steadily declined over the last 2 years. If you can see on camera, on screen there. And if you go all the way back, I don't know if you saw this, but all the way back to 2019, this site was rocking and rolling.
Oh, wow. Actually, I didn't go that far back. But I will say we are probably seeing a gradual decrease because their actual last piece of content was published late 2020 or around 2023.
So I just went back even further, Colin. That was 2019.
Oh, wow.
And look at 2018. Oh my gosh.
You know what? Yeah, I did not do that level of digging, Jared. I could have, suppose, clicked on literally one button in Ahrefs and seen that. So, let's say this site was fairly successful.
I don't worry. This is what Spencer and I do. We just goof around on here and kind of discover stuff as we talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because those product review boxes looked pretty 2018. If I were to date them, they looked like something I would have created back in 2018. And yeah, at that kind of traffic level, selling an e-commerce product like that or pushing traffic, I mean, I bet they were doing pretty well back at that time.
Yeah, I bet so.
Interesting. Wow, that's fascinating. What a fun topic. And everyone got treated, if you're watching online on YouTube, you got treated to a lot of pictures of toe fungus.
Probably what they signed up for.
Yeah, that's exactly what you wanted when you came to listen or watch this podcast. And if you're listening, just be glad you're listening this week. Hey, nice work. You knocked it out of the park. Thank you for joining your first news podcast episode. I believe Spencer's back next week, but don't hold me to that. Great job coming on board. Thanks for being a great guest host this week.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jared. It was a blast.
And again, I always ask where people can find you, but I know people can find you in the Niche Pursuits community. Anywhere else that you hang out these days?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you can email me, colinlma@gmail.com if you have specific questions. Not really taking on clients or anything at the moment, but I love talking to people. Really big extrovert. But yeah, if anything, you can find me very active in the Discord of the Niche Pursuits community if you want to pick my SEO brain. But if you want to just casually chat, you can hit me up on my email.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming this week in the news. We'll be back same time, same place next week, talking about what has developed since then. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hey there, thanks so much for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Did you know that Jared and I are members of a private group called the Niche Pursuits Community? And today I want to share with you how you can join for just $1. The Niche Pursuits Community is a private members area for niche online publishers to mastermind and grow their businesses together. We hold weekly calls live with experts where you can ask questions. These experts share tips on Amazon Influencer, Google Discover, building email newsletters, getting traffic from Facebook, and other strategies to grow your online business. You'll also be assigned a mastermind group of 4 or 5 other people in a similar stage in business as you. Dive deep into your business issues and get your problems solved. If you use coupon code PODCAST at checkout, you'll get your first month for just $1. Go ahead and give it a try. Come join me, Jared, and lots of other digital entrepreneurs inside my private group at community.nichepursuits.com. And be sure to use coupon code PODCAST. I'll see you on the inside.